Hey guys, welcome back to the best place for new and aspiring lawyers on all things law school, the legal industry, and lawyering life. I'm Angela Vorpahl of angelavorpahl.com, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the worst law school advice that you will still hear even to this day, and specifically the top 5 pieces of worst law school advice out there. And if you guys are interested in these kinds of topics, be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to tap that notification bell so that you can see new videos coming out every other week, and be sure to stay to the end because I'm going to tell you guys how you can get uber prep for law school, heading in, everything you need to know about starting law school. So if you guys are excited to jump in, be sure to smash that like button and let's go. Number 1 worst piece of law school advice is join a study group. And the reason I put this as number 1 is because you hear people talking about study groups all the time. You see them in movies, you see them in TV shows, and they're sort of put on this pedestal of the ultimate way to study in law school. And I can tell you that most study groups are a huge waste of time, because what people don't realize is that any time you get a group of law students together, the first thing you're going to do and the time that you're going to spend together is going to be maximized on talking about things that are frustrating, or things that happened that week, or reasons that you don't like the professor, or things that got under your skin. It's a download session, it's a chat session, it's a therapy session among friends. And as long as you know that, and as long as you allocate your time accordingly, that's fine. But what most people do in study groups is allocate a huge percentage of their week, 5 or 6 hours at least per week, with a study group and in tactics that aren't moving the ball forward. And so yes, maybe you get a few answers to your questions of legal issues that you don't understand. Maybe you get a few legal rules pointed out that you missed in a practice exam. But the time investment that it takes to get those little nuggets back is usually disproportionate to their value. And so you are spending so much of that time together in things that aren't getting you prepared for law school exams, and you're just not getting the return on that time investment in terms of value. And so I would really caution you guys before you join a study group to really understand what goes on in study groups and what to use them for. And, you know, if it is for more of a personal interaction and chat session and support system, that's great. Just make sure that you're allocating it to, you know, 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, something that is manageable, where you can still use the time that you have every day to allocate to studying steps that are actually going to get you the results that you want to see. Number 2 worst piece of law school advice is to take notes by hand. And I know you guys have heard me rail on this before, but it's just so important, because you're going to get a lot of pushback from some professors who hate having laptops in their classrooms, and they're going to tell you that you're not learning anything. They're going to tell you that you're not internalizing the information, and they're going to all but threaten you not to bring a laptop into their class, but bring one anyway, because the point of taking notes, both when you are reading a case and when you are in class, is not to understand the information the first time you read it, because that's impossible. These concepts are new, they're dense, they're really difficult to wrap your head around and understand, and you're not going to comprehend them the first time that you hear them or read them. And so the function of notes is to get all that information down on the page as quickly as you can and as thoroughly as you can, so that you can then use that information later to distill down, to synthesize as you go through the studying process. And if you're taking notes by hand, there is just no way that you are getting all of that information down that you could if you're typing. And it also means that you're self-selecting what you're taking notes on. So in the moment, you are deciding what's important and what's not. And because you don't have any sort of understanding of the material yet, it's impossible for you to ask yourself to correctly self-select the information that you should be taking down and the information that you should be ignoring. So please, please, please don't give way to the bullying of some law school professors that tell you you must take notes by hand. If they allow a laptop in the classroom, if they will allow laptop notes, then please, please, please type your notes, get all that stuff down so that you can utilize it later. Number 3 worst piece of law school advice: prepare extensively for class. And I know you guys have heard me talk about this in other videos, but it is just so important, because the biggest mistake that a lot of law students make is to spend too many hours preparing for class on the off chance and based on the fear that they're going to get cold called on in class. And I know that is a scary reality. I know that it is really terrifying and overwhelming to be called on and to be asked to recite the facts of a case and the holding of a case and the rule of a case. I know, but the possibility of not presenting a case perfectly in class is not enough of a reason to burn hours rereading and rereading and rereading cases that could otherwise be time spent in other steps of the studying process that are going to be so much more fruitful for you and prepare you so much better for the final exam. Because cold calls don't affect your grade. Yes, maybe some professors talk about a grade bump if you participate, but if you read the case and if you go over the supplements online, you're going to be baseline prepared for class, and that's all you need to be, because we're not living in a world where you have weeks and weeks to read these cases and prepare them in a professional way. You're reading 5 to 10 cases a night, and that is how well you should be understanding the material at that step of the studying process, which is a basic understanding. The nuances and the facts and the hypotheticals that a law professor might throw at you are not something that you are expected to know. And honestly, that's why professors don't have grading elements for cold calls, because they know that you're not only overwhelmed with the amount of material, but that you're also learning it for the first time. And so please, please, please don't invest too much time in the reading notes stage of the studying process and in the cold call fear stage. Instead, pay attention to what the professor is saying in class. Take thorough notes on that, because that is gold. The professor is telling you what he or she thinks are the biggest takeaways of the case, and that's what's going to be on the final exam. So please don't burn yourself out on the reading so that you don't have enough energy or time to spend on other steps of the studying process that will actually get you the results that you want to see for law school exams. Number 4, worst piece of law school advice: use flashcards. I cannot believe that people are still recommending that people create and use flashcards to prepare for law school final exams, because law school final exams are not about memorization, they're about application. And so the vast majority of law school exams, especially 1L year, are going to be fact pattern issue spotters, meaning you're going to get 2 to 3 pages of facts, and you're going to have to apply the cases and the rules that you've learned during the semester to those hypothetical facts, which means that you can't just rattle off memorization. You're not going to be asked, for example, what the year that a particular opinion was published or what the facts of a particular case were. That's not how a law school exam works. And so the way that you're going to prepare for a law school exam, which is repetition and organization, doesn't lend itself to stark memorization that flashcards would be useful for. Not to mention that most 1L exams in most law schools across the country are open book. And so yes, there are very specific strategies to how you go about preparing yourself for an open book exam, but the basics of that is that you're going to have access to the basic tenets of each piece of law. And so memorizing them sort of in a college undergrad sort of way is not the best use of your time, because you're going to have it there on the page to be able to reference. The much better use of your time is continuing to review, synthesize, distill the information down step after step after step, so that you are able to then apply it on the final exam. So please, please, please don't use flashcards as a method to study. There are so many better ways to go about it. And the number 5 worst piece of law school advice is to wait to outline or wait to take practice exams until you are ready. And this is terrible advice, because you are not going to be ready until the very end of the semester. And the way that you become ready, or the way that you start understanding the concepts that you're learning, is to go ahead and start outlining and taking practice exams. Because what most people do, and it makes sense from an objective standpoint, is they wait until about 2/3 of the semester and then they start outlining and taking practice exams as ways to study for the final exam. But by that point, it's way too late. Those things need to be happening so much earlier in the semester, so much earlier in the studying process, because that's how your brain starts fitting the concepts together and starts seeing them over and over and understanding them. And this magical context that people are usually waiting for in order to start these 2 important steps isn't going to be something that comes naturally. It's not going to be something that magically appears 2/3 before the semester or 2 weeks before the final exam. It's something that is earned. It's something that's acquired after reviewing and revising your notes and your outlines and your practice exams. So please don't fall into that trap of waiting until the very end of the semester to start these important steps. Make sure you're starting those way, way, way earlier in the semester. So that's all of the terrible pieces of law school studying advice that gets recycled and reiterated year after year after year. But what is the right advice? How should you go about studying in law school and to prepare yourselves for final exams? Well, I'm so glad you asked, because I'm actually putting on a free 3-day challenge that will give you guys these strategies and tips and approaches that you need to have a really, really successful and awesome law school semester. So if you're interested in participating, sign up in the link in the description below. And if you guys are seeing this video in the future, then there will be a link to a waitlist for the next time that the Level Up Law School Challenge happens. So make sure you sign up for that waitlist. I'm so excited for you guys to learn exactly what you need to do to prepare and be successful in your law school semester coming up. And if you guys are interested in videos on topics like this, be sure to check out these two awesome videos over here and be sure to subscribe over here. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. That's all for this week. Bye.